Hello again, everyone, and welcome back to Reddit Aliens. I'm John, and as always, thank you so much for being here. A good topic today. Let's do it. What's your most traumatic experience or memory from your childhood? Happy Easter, by the way. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. I was maybe 5 or 6. I walked down the street to play with a friend who lived in the downstairs of a duplex. I had to go in a door and walk down a hallway. She wasn't home, but the upstairs neighbor's dog was. I don't remember what breed, but it had short hair, was tan, and looked mean, maybe a German Shepherd Rottweiler mix. It was at the top of the stairs, angrily barking. I was cornered. I thought of hiding in a laundry room, but decided to count to 5 and make a run for it. I ran down the hallway, out the door, and all the way home. I was afraid of dogs for most of my life, until I met my friend's golden retriever when I was in my late 20s. That dog completely changed me, with its personality, love, and affection. I'm a dog lover to this day. In hindsight, nice pun, the dog upstairs was probably restrained in some way, and that's why it didn't come after me. It would have had no problem catching me otherwise. I'll go with the depressing, traumatic experience. I grew up in the country on my farm. My dad was a truck driver who was gone all the time. My mom worked her ass off. My siblings were much older than I, so during the summer, I'd ride my bike to the cow pasture or to my neighbor's house. My neighbors were awesome. They were, then, in their early 30s, no kids, pets galore, and morbidly obese, so they had a lot of junk food. They were my second set of parents. My parents trusted them with me. Life was grand, up until I was 8, and one summer morning, my neighbor guy, let's call him Ray promised to take me fishing. I was so excited as I loved fishing. I got up early, ate my Wheaties, and rode my Huffy down to their house. Ray's wife was at work, so just me and Dad. Cool. Well, before we left, I was watching a new episode of Power Rangers, and I had been sitting on his lap, talking with him about normal 8-year-old girl shit. And that's when it happened. He began to unbutton my pants. I'm 8, maybe 75 pounds, soaking wet. He's in his mid-30s and a good 450 pounds. I can't go into detail about what happened next because you can assume the worst. I never went back to their house, ever again. And oddly enough, my parents never asked me why. My dad called me a few years ago, saying Ray had a heart attack and died in the same house. The rescue workers had to cut a hole out of the side of the house to get him out. I said good riddance, and finally told him. What sickened me was all of the outpouring support from our small boondock town. You see, Ray would be the town's Santa every year, and he physically fit the role perfectly. And Ray, well, he would never miss a Sunday in church. Everyone thought Ray was an excellent man, but to me, he was a monster. Ray, and his pedophilia. Hope you're burning in hell. When I was born, my parents had a dog, a black mutt named Lady, and I grew up loving that dog more than anything else in the world. I spent the first few years of my life in the backyard playing, chasing, and running with Lady for hours. When I wasn't in the yard playing with her, I was standing on a chair looking out our back window. Mom said that somewhere near the age of 2.5, I would regularly say, I really like to watch her run. This spring after I turned 3, I was playing with her and I pulled her tail. It made her run fast. I pulled it again and she ran to the stoop up to our back door. I pulled it again and she, with nowhere to go, leapt about 4 feet from the stoop, over our back fence, and into our neighborhood. She was out an hour or so, and bit a neighbor of ours who insisted we put the dog down or face a lawsuit. My dad didn't want to put her down and flatly refused to take her to animal control, so Mom had to do it. Mom took me and Lady to animal control, and I remember the absolute excitement of Lady going in the car with us. It was unheard of. The animal control building had a picture of a dog or cat on their doormat, and I was telling Lady about trying to get her to look at it while we went in. Then we handed her over, and she went behind a big door, and I never saw her again. I'll be 36 years old in 2 months. I'm at my desk in my office at work, and I had to close my door and lock it because about midway through the 3rd paragraph, I started weeping while I typed this. I blame myself for her getting out. I blame myself for her dying. I was about 25 and had a dream where she was in my room in my apartment and fell on the floor, telling her how sorry I was. I woke up choking. I was crying so hard. I imagine I'll go to my grave, hating myself for that, and hoping on the other side there's a dog that can forgive me. 17-year-old me spent a day in the emergency room with back problems. I was sent home with muscle relaxers and instructions to do nothing but lie flat on my back. My alcoholic, abusive dad worked nights, slept days, and knew nothing about it. The next day he thinks the house is empty when I hear him and his friend discuss what he wants saved. Suspicious, I hide and listen. They're gathering things he doesn't want to lose in the fire. He was planning to burn our house down that night while my mom, sister, and I slept. I freaked out, obviously. An hour later, my sister came home and packed her car to run. My mom came home and didn't believe us until my sister said, "Stay here and die, but we're leaving." She realized it was true and began grabbing anything she could. My dad came back from delivering his saved treasures, and all hell broke loose. I walked out the back door and saw a knife held in my mom's throat. I would have killed him if I could have. My scream caused him to remove the knife. I don't remember much more due to the trauma of the situation and being on muscle relaxers, but I know some police showed up and did nothing. We moved out that day. That was almost 30 years ago, and I still have nightmares. My mom's girlfriend was drinking and driving, and my little brother and I were in the car. She went over the median while I was screaming and finally crashed into someone. I was in the back seat, and my braces went through my lips. My mother bailed that lady out of jail the same night. Yep. And I was scared all night that she was going to come kill me because I told on her for drinking to the cops. I was 11, I think. Edit. I forgot to end the story with my mom calling me on my birthday to tell me her girlfriend killed herself out of guilt for what she did to us. What the My dad's second wife, he had 4 marriages total, was the epitome of an evil stepmother. We went back to school shopping when I was 8 or 9, and I was really excited about this neon green Minnie Mouse shirt. Well, the rules were that we couldn't wear those new clothes until school started. Dad and stepmom went on vacation, and I was excitedly pulling out the Minnie Mouse shirt, thinking I was cool as a cucumber. I remember spilling some of my food on it, but I folded it up and placed it back in the drawer, hoping to get away with my crime and never thought anything of it. One random Saturday morning, I'm being dragged out of my bed by my hair by my stepmother. I have no idea what's going on or why she's mad at me. She takes me out to the back porch and starts squirting ketchup and mustard all over me and telling me if I want to live like a pig, I'll get treated like a pig. I was still very confused and didn't realize till like 3 days later she found out about my Minnie Mouse shirt. Then, we're in the backyard. She pushes me down a long flight of wooden stairs. I remember trying to grasp at anything I could while I was falling. She then tells me to strip. Remember, I'm 8 or 9. What the And she sprays me off with a cold hose. Oh, by the way, my dad never divorced her for that. He also never divorced her for ruining our trip to Disney World. Should be every kid's dream come true, right? Nope. The first night we are there, she has me eating the biggest fucking slice of sausage pizza you've ever seen, and I hate sausage pizza. So, like a normal kid, I'm eating it slow, gagging, etc. Well, her game was to beat me if I didn't eat it within 5 minutes, and then she'd reset the timer for 5 minutes and do the same thing over and over until at the end of it, She just told me to go to bed and face the wall while my dad, little brother, and she watched a movie as a family. Oof. Pretty much all of them. My mom was bipolar and a whore. Due to her sabotaging every job she ever had because of paranoia and picking fights with everyone she meets, we moved over 40 times, living in homeless shelters, cars, or motels with strangers all over the East Coast. My memories consist of seeing and hearing my mom have sex with guys ranging from 16 to 65. She was in her 20s and 30s when I was at home. Pretty much a different guy every night or week. Off the top of my head, I can name about 50. Being left home alone for 1 to 3 days at a time since I was 8, with my younger sisters with no food or phone access, trying to tell the cops about our abuse or neglect, being yelled at that everything is my fault, watching my mom physically abuse my autistic sister, being told that the rest of our extended family and God hates us, and that's why our life is terrible. I could go on for eons. I can count on one hand the number of days in my childhood that were not traumatic. Due to a rare medical condition, I was lacking in dopamine during childhood or teenage years. As a result, I was severely depressed. The standard medication was given to me, but due to this condition, I started to go a little bit mad. The medication, as it turned out, buggers up dopamine levels. I carved someone's name into my chest, yes, with a knife, yet I only realized what I had done hours after the medication had worn off. I often felt disconnected from reality. I kept doing crazy things, kept alienating people. My depression worsened due to my loneliness, and the fact that my family made it clear that if I didn't keep taking these meds, which were making me worse, but no one at the time figured that out, I'd be put into a mental health unit. To make my family happy, my brother and mother, I kept taking them, didn't want to. Mother kept threatening me with the threat of being institutionalized. My brother would force feed them to me if I tried to cheat them. Eventually, I started seeing things. Initially, I saw colors. Slowly, it manifested into full-blown hallucinations. Sometimes I could control them. If I listened to certain forms of music, I could feel it. Most of the time, however, they turned dark. A figure in the shadows would be pursuing me. My dreams would be haunted by thoughts of loved ones dying. I was constantly under observation. God spoke to me. I saw the heart of madness and laughed and laughed and laughed. I started to believe that I was hated by everyone. Everyone hated me, screaming in my head. I was given antipsychotics. My memory went. I became suicidal. I loved my mother and my brother. They were the pillars of my heart, but I couldn't keep imagining things. I couldn't keep doing stupid things. What was worse was that half the time, I'd have no memory of it afterwards. I can't recall 3 years of school. I tried jumping off buildings only for either my will to fail or my brother and his friends to find me and drag me down. I attempted to overdose, but my brother and his friends discovered me had either treated me or didn't administer enough medication to kill me. I tried cutting my wrists, but never had the willpower to cut through. My long-suffering brother, who had to watch me go through this, try and end my life, and sit on me just to keep an eye on me, he grew bitter with me. Our friendship was damaged. It has not recovered since, but the day he said he didn't care anymore, I stopped fighting the darkness. I just wanted to die. I wanted the screaming to stop. I yearned to return to my childhood state of normalcy and love. I wanted him to love me again as I loved him. I OD'd on a mixture of antidepressants, anti-epileptics, and antipsychotics. 2 days in the hospital out of my head, I woke up. All drugs were rescinded. I've recovered. No more hallucinations. No more weird impulses. Nothing that had driven me to madness. I still live with the aftermath, though. My brother still does not trust me, and at times seems cold and distant. But to memory failure, I failed my GCSEs completely, couldn't remember anything I'd been taught, and I'm still alone. When I was about 5, I was in a van seconds before it went over a cliff. It was a very odd old van my father was restoring. One night my mother needed to run an errand, and my father had the car, so she decided to take the van. We were just leaving when the steering and brakes both went out, or so my mother says. According to my father, she simply panicked because it was either one or the other. In any case, she grabbed me and jumped out, and then the van went careening over the cliff our house was built on. By an unfortunate stroke of luck, my father was coming home at the time and saw from a distance the van go over the cliff. He was screaming, trying to get down to what he assumed was his dead wife and son, when got his attention and he realized we weren't in it. It was a pretty good fright for all involved, I guess. When I was 12 years old, my father was diagnosed with ALS, and I had to watch as he withered away in a matter of 6 months after being diagnosed. That was horrible on its own, but what really sucked was, after this happened, my mother kind of just neglected my sister and me. She stopped working, moved in with her new boyfriend, and I ended up having to grow up completely independent of supervision. It amazed me how CPS never took notice of this, and how it probably happens to other people as well. I was very lucky that my mother still paid off the bills to the apartment we stayed at, using Social Security survivor benefits, or else I would have probably ended up in foster care system. What amazes me now at age 20 is how much this once traumatic experience has benefited me in the long run. I am now fiercely independent and rebellious and can do things most people wouldn't dare to try. For example, I've hitchhiked 10,000 plus miles around the USA in the last 2 years and have gained extraordinary insights that I feel take most a lifetime to figure out. As bad as my childhood was, I wouldn't change a thing about it. When I was 12, my father came home from work. He was a Marine and had a heart attack in front of his wife and 4 children. My mother sprung to action while my siblings and I really understand what was going on. My mother only yelled at us to calm down and to go to our rooms, and informed me, since I was the oldest, to watch my siblings while she took my dad to the hospital. I didn't hear from my folks all night long, and I had to get myself and my siblings up and off to school the next morning. I had no idea what happened or where my folks were. I had a meltdown in the middle of school and got in trouble for it by a teacher, and then later when I got home, by my mother. I hated the feeling of being left in the dark like that, and it just added to all the other shitty childhood experiences that helped shape my anxiety disorder. I imagine nobody will read this at this point. I did. But my most traumatic moment was when I was about 10 or 11. My father was occasionally physically abusive, but I never paid it much mind, as I lived with my mother. Then I got labeled as gay at my middle school, and suddenly the bullying and isolation I'd been somewhat used to already got much, much worse, until I got to this point where I considered self-harm. At that point, I did the reasonable thing and went to my mother for help. She told me, and I'll never forget her exact words, "You brought this on yourself, so you should deal with it." After that, I told my father the whole school situation, not about my mom's response, and he only replied that if I was gay, we'd have a problem. Looking back, my mother was very emotionally and mentally abusive and manipulative my entire childhood to complement my father's physical side, presumably, and as a result of this incident, I have a lot of trouble trusting anyone in any capacity. My dad was a severe alcoholic. He drank heavily all hours of the day just so he could literally pass out in the evening. Doctors told him his liver was failing and he needed to quit drinking or he would die. Pure and simple. He kept drinking. When we brought him home from his last trip to the hospital, he was pale and incoherent, could barely say a word or lift a finger. The next morning, before heading out the door to school, I stopped and asked him if he could tie my shoes. I was old enough to do it myself, but I so desperately wanted my father's attention for him to acknowledge me, like if he did it would make everything okay. He tied them slowly, hands shaking, head down, no words. That night my dad was asleep on the couch. I sat for a while next to him, hoping he'd be okay, hoping for anything. As a little boy, you think your father is indestructible, that he'll always be there to take care of you and tell you how proud he is of you, and teach you all the things you'll need to know for when you grow up to be a man. All that was taken away. Eventually an ambulance came and took him. It turns out he slipped into a coma sometime during the day. He died later that night, days before Christmas. Just that entire experience burned so vividly in me. Well, I don't know if you heard from the sound of my voice, but your story really resonated with me. I have a childhood filled with tough memories with my father, who battled with his own alcoholism, social and, happy-go-lucky as he was. It was a mask, and though he wasn't, physically abusive to me or my mother, really just to himself, but a lot of that really struck a chord, so that was a tough little read for me, and, it affects more than just the person. So, anyway, hope you guys are having a great day. One of my first concrete memories is from when I was 3, almost 4. My family had been visiting other family, and next day was Sunday. Even though it was really late and my dad had been drinking, they wanted to get home so they could send my brother and me to church and get us out of their hair so they could sleep off their hangovers in peace. My baby sister stayed with the relatives, and good thing, or she would have died. I remember sitting in the very back of the station wagon playing with Star Wars cookies. This was the late 1983, before I fell asleep. I fell asleep, my older brother fell asleep, and my mom fell asleep. And with all of us slumbering, my dad soon succumbed as well. He fell asleep. The car went into a deep drainage ditch, flipping over a couple of times before coming to rest upside down. I woke up to a curious sound, my father crying and begging and pleading for me to wake up. My brother was also crying, bawling, and calling for my mom over and over again. I'd never heard my father cry and wouldn't again for another 5 years after he was banned from his favorite bar. That fully woke me up. And being fully woken up, woke up the pain in my leg. It was on fire and I couldn't move it. I looked down and a large shape was lying directly on my leg, which was twisted in a strange way. None of us but my dad had been wearing a seatbelt, and so when we crashed, my mother, brother, and I went flying around the station wagon. My mother, 6 feet and then about 250 pounds, landed on my leg when the car finally came to a halt. I kept spinning, my leg didn't. My dad saw I was awake and frantically started trying to pull me out, all the while begging my mom to wake up, but she remained a quiet, immobile weight crushing my leg. It felt like forever, but eventually he was able to pull me out from under my mother. My leg started hurting even more, as the previous pain had been, despite the weight of my mother cutting off all circulation. I don't know how long I lay there in the grass of that ditch, but an ambulance eventually came and carted my brother and me away. It wasn't until the next day, when my grandparents came to the hospital, that I found out my mother was alive. She was badly messed up. Broken hip, broken ribs, broken leg, but alive. My injury wasn't nearly as bad as it seemed. Not broken, just severely strained. I had to relearn how to walk. I also had a gnarly rug burn covering half my chest, which was better than my brother, who had one covering half of his face. And so, yeah, That's one of my first memories. I wasn't really a child, but this took place the summer after my freshman year of high school. I was on vacation in Florida, and my parents came back to the hotel room super drunk one night. My dad went and passed out, and my mom stayed up and started talking to me and my sister. I forget exactly what it was about. She was trying to start some drama. She got my sister to record it. My sister loves to see me yelled at or insulted. I went and tried to grab the camera from my sister. We were both pulling on the camera when my mom went over and pushed me down and got on top of me. She weighed about 40 pounds more than me and took boxing classes every day. She was threatening to choke me and talking about what her abusive stepfather did to her. I was trying to fight back, but the squirming wasn't working. I tried to use my words. I tried to call a bluff. She wasn't bluffing. Her elbow pressed down on my throat, but I was still about and able to scream. I did as loud as I could, but nobody helped. My dad was still passed out. My mom stuck her fingers down my throat to gag me. Her long nails were scraping it. I couldn't breathe. I don't even know how long that was. She got bored eventually and went into the kitchen. I went to shut down my laptop. I had Dota 2 open while that was going on. I pulled out my phone to text my best friend and soak in what just happened. I could taste the blood coming from where the back of my throat was cut. My mother came in and attacked me again. She grabbed my laptop, ripped out the cords that were plugged in, and threw it on the ground. She got on top of me again. This time I couldn't move my legs. I was struggling again, so she grabbed my hair and banged my head against the cabinet to the side of me. I still had my phone in my hand, and I managed to dial 911 while Mom was trying to grab it. I screamed for help into the phone. It got hung up, but after a few more seconds, my mom got off of me. The police called back, and I started telling them where I was. My dad emerged from the bedroom in his underwear. "What's going on?" At that point, the police called back, and I told them where I was. My parents were laughing at me, saying that no one would believe me. They were right. The police came, and they didn't listen to a word I said. I was even cut off. My parents put on their clothes. I'll never forget my mom's sugary, sweet voice and smile. I never heard it before then, and I've never heard it since. My mom said that I went crazy and started beating the shit out of my sister, so she just pulled me off of her. The officer lectured me for almost an hour about being respectful to my parents and about how, if I ever called again, she'd remember me and make sure I was arrested and put in jail. I can't trust officers now. After that, I got lectured by my parents about it. My dad didn't even know what had happened. He was too drunk to hear my screams for help. I discovered that my hinges and HDD on my laptop were broken. It was cracked. I treasured this laptop, and I saved up forever for it. I haven't played Dota 2 since. That was the night I stopped loving my parents. Many bad things happened in my childhood because of my parents, but this one sticks out to me. I'm 17 now, and I haven't started healing from that. The bruises are long gone, but the fear is still there.